How are you doing? I'm Andy from Genelec. I'd like to welcome Neville from NEP. Thank you for joining us, Nev.
Hello.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So I'd just like to kind of talk about your work in immersive audio, and specifically your kind of work with Sky over the years, and particularly relating to the Premier League broadcasts. So if you give us a bit of background on the project.
So,
Wouldn't be an audio then?
yeah, well, it should be. That's always me. Yeah, there was kind of two strands to this. Obviously, we had our little incident back in 2016, I think.
Fire.
Which presented us with an opportunity. We suddenly had to rebuild a whole new fleet of trucks, and we looked at kind of solutions. We used Genelec monitors for many years already. So, and at that point, it was just as the new range had come out. So we, Paul Fournier, who was head of sound at the time, and myself discussed it, went through the listening test, and chose the new speakers because we decided that they were head and shoulders above everything else. And it wasn't just Genelec, we tested at that as well, we other speakers too, but chose them. And Paul and I discussed it at the time. With the benefit now of experience, I absolutely think we made the right choice. One of the things, at the time as well, we were still working in 5.1. Immersive 5.1.4 hadn't come along, but we kind of knew that it was likely. So, because we were building the trucks, we had the ability to factor that in to our thinking. So, but, you know, the important thing, obviously, if you're going to start experimenting with the soundstage already in 5.1, even more critically in 5.1+4, is you need a good soundstage, you know, and a good solid image.
Yeah.
As things move around that image, you don't get any holes and it's evenly matched, and we absolutely finally get that with these speakers.
So I mean, those trucks, the next generation of trucks, so this is kind of what you've been working with for how many years? 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
About right,
yeah. Probably actually nearer 6.
Right, okay.
Basically. So,
and just in terms of kind of like the environment that you are in, kind of give you an example of that.
Yes.
So kind of my background specifically with Genelec is kind of working in a lot of environments with end users, kind of calibrating systems and seeing how people are working. And this is kind of what jumps out to me is the listening distance. It's quite short.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work off axis outside of the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So this is kind of an ideal case study for this family of monitors. That's the 8351.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of our compact 3-way design. So the idea being that we can kind of work with short listening distances. And one thing that we've tried to achieve over the many years we've been making monitors is that great if we're in the sweet spot, but what happens when we're outside of the sweet spot? And also in immersive as well, we're bringing more speakers into the equation. The off-axis response is super, super important. So how have you found that in terms of working within the trucks?
We've absolutely found that working with trucks. I mean, there are quite a few people in this room who've mixed in these trucks, aside from myself. And the one thing you find as you go up and down the desk, as you often have to do, is that your image stays rock solid. It doesn't change perspective or anything. It's the same image, you know, as you move up and down, you know, as the job dictates. So, and that's the thing that we really liked, and you know, and there's a good wide frequency response.
Yeah.
So, you know, an informal often, you know, during prep or testing or reading, playing music in the truck, and people looking, oh, that sounds great. It's not actually the stuff, that is just the speakers.
Right, so they're being run full range in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Full range. So, we run, we don't run frequency management through the sub. It's all just full range to every speaker, and do it that way. We find that works better for the way we operate.
And so how are you finding, so presumably you're kind of creating a foundation for Air Ones to get to then kind of to enable some sort of translation between what's going on at the stadium to what's then happening in the gallery, right? So how have you found that translation in a pretty difficult environment?
Yeah, I mean, obviously trucks have always been a compromise. The other thing with these trucks was suddenly we had a bigger sound area, and you'll notice that you know, from the picture, traditional trucks, there was a lot of outboard gear surrounding the mixer. We made a real decision with these trucks to just have a console and the monitoring, picture monitoring and speaker monitoring, and try and strip out the rest of all the unnecessary Yeah, particularly there's so much more is built into the consoles now.
Right.
So, you know, and obviously you can perhaps, as best you can, improve the speaker positioning, but it's always going to be a bit compromised in the chart. But we found that the speakers seem to cope with it, you know, well. Even, you know, as you can see, the centre speaker just kind of poking out over the top of the
Relation often.
but you know, equally, it's quite nicely anchored to the, you know, the centre of the screen.
Yeah. It's nice to kind of, if you've got that increased footprint, to be able to kind of respect kind of some of the kind of standards in terms of placement as well. So that you'll get close to kind of the ideal angle, if you like, the ideal placement.
Yeah, and we do balance the speakers within the room.
Yeah.
You know, we play noise through just to make sure we get consistent response and no nasty surprises from any kind of reflections or anything, you know, at the listening position. You know, it's all good for that.
Okay. So kind of talk about the challenges then, in terms of opportunities, with more kind of consumer devices coming online and more ways for people to be able to kind of consume and access immersive audio at home. Do you kind of see there being more of an appetite for kind of more productions to be kind of taking place in immersive and particularly in Atmos?
Yeah, and we're starting to have more conversations with clients about wanting to do other jobs. There was, you know, and I guess this will be touched on later on as well. There was a big push initially with immersive, and then kind of another little incident. You know, the pandemic happened, and focus has kind of changed. So, if you work in the sky, we went from produced on site to a lot of remote working, and actually there's less of them actually deliver on mixed on site now. And there's still some of them are, but you know, there's more remote working. So, but people are looking at it again.
Yeah.
Now that most of the challenges we've dealt with, all the different technical challenges that we've kind of been dealt with and kind of moved on from, people are now looking at people are now looking at other means of delivering their show and in an improved format. So yes, various other projects aside from just sports events, for sure.
It's nice. One of the things you touched on there about kind of how the remote working side of things has kind of become kind of much more kind of been adopted and become normalised. Kind of our original brief back in the day, back in 1978, was to try and bring consistency across facilities. And now we're starting to see it where it's kind of that remote production, kind of whether it's work that you're doing kind of at the stadium and how that then translates back in the gallery, and that one-to-one relationship is it's really exciting for us to see that kind of that proof of concept kind of be borne out.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's you know, that consistency of monitoring. You know, people know them, and I think Sky use the similar speakers. So you know, it's at least for their supervisors between truck and mixing back at Osterley, they're going to have a consistency of presentation. You know,
that was something that was really interesting to see from your adoption early on, and then to see that kind of progress and Sky's adoption of the Ones family again. You kind of see that one-to-one again, and I think that the process has been pretty seamless, and the results have been kind of well received, which is good.
Good.
Excellent. So do you think the kind of the requirement for new truck builds will be immersive?
I think you'd be crazy to build a truck without it. So, you know, so long as you're not building a remote truck, if you're building a truck to deliver any kind of job, you have to factor it in because, you know, as demand increases for it, you know, you need to be able to deliver it to be competitive. Yeah. So, for sure, absolutely.
That's great. And then kind of ultimately, as channel counts start to scale up, we can kind of just add on to those systems as formats kind of come along.
Indeed.
That's great. Excellent.
Right.
Well, thank you for your time, Nev. If anyone's got any questions, we'll be outside and kind of talk about the Ones family, talk about GLM, the way that we kind of calibrate the systems and control them. And also we have something called the grade, which is an acoustic report generated when you calibrate the system. So that lands in your inbox and it gives you all loads of information about how to get the best out of your room. So loads of stuff we can talk about. So please feel free to grab us outside. We'll be more than happy to have a chat. But thank you so much for your time, Nev. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Cheers.